In the quiet chambers of my soul, where memories weave themselves into tapestries of pain and triumph, I sit as the Black Queen, crowned not by gold but by the weight of a life forged in fire. My name is Elmira Tate, born beneath the heavy skies of Birmingham, Alabama, where the air carried the scent of iron from steel mills and the echoes of a history that refused to be silenced. My skin, a deep mahogany kissed by the sun, bore the legacy of ancestors who toiled in fields and fought in shadows, their resilience woven into my bones. I was raised in a world where love was both a refuge and a battlefield, where dreams were stitched together with the thread of survival, and where every step forward demanded a reckoning with the past. My childhood unfolded in a modest shotgun house, its walls thin but warm with the laughter of my family. Mama was a schoolteacher, her voice a melody of wisdom, her hands worn from grading papers and kneading dough for Sunday cornbread. Daddy, a mechanic, carried the weight of the world in his calloused palms, his pride in providing for us a quiet fire that never dimmed. They named me Elmira, meaning eternal, a prayer that I would endure beyond the limitations of our circumstances. From them, I learned the poetry of endurance, how to hold pain without breaking, how to dream without losing sight of the ground beneath my feet. Birmingham was a city of contrasts, vibrant Black communities pulsing with jazz and faith, shadowed by the specter of racism that lingered like smoke. School was my haven, where I devoured books under fluorescent lights, each page a portal to worlds where Black girls like me could be more than maids or martyrs. Yet even there, the world reminded me of my place teachers who praised my intellect but steered me toward practical paths, classmates who mocked my braided hair as if it were a rebellion against their norms. I absorbed it all, letting it fuel a quiet resolve, a vow to carve my own path. I met Terence in my early 20s, at a church picnic where the air buzzed with gospel and the scent of barbecue. He was a man of charm, his smile a lighthouse in the storm of my uncertainties. A carpenter by trade, he built dreams with his hands, his ambition mirroring my own. We were young, reckless with hope, and our love bloomed like wildflowers in a cracked sidewalk. I was working then as a paralegal, my nights spent studying for a law degree, my days navigating a firm where white attorneys treated me with a politeness that masked condescension. Terence saw me, truly saw me, and in his eyes, I glimpsed a future where we could build something unbreakable. We married in a small ceremony, surrounded by family, the church alive with hymns and the scent of gardenias. Our vows were a pact against the world's cruelties, a promise to stand as equals. Our home, a rented duplex in a neighborhood where sirens sang lullabies, became a canvas for our dreams. I balanced work and study, while Terence took on extra jobs, his hands crafting furniture that spoke of care. Our daughter, Zora, arrived like a sunrise, her laughter a melody that softened the edges of our struggles. I saw in her my mother's eyes, my father's strength, and I vowed to give her a world less heavy than the one I'd inherited. But love, like all fragile things, can crack under pressure. Terence's dreams began to fray, his carpentry business struggling against a market that favored cheaper labor. Frustration crept into our home, his warmth cooling into distance. I poured myself into my work, passing the bar exam, becoming a lawyer whose passion for justice burned bright. Yet the world outside our door was unkind. Clients questioned my competence, their eyes lingering on my skin. Colleagues whispered of affirmative action, as if my degree were a gift rather than a conquest. Class humiliation stung, a reminder that my ascent threatened those who saw me as less. I carried it silently, my resolve a shield, my love for Terence and Zora my anchor. The betrayal came on a humid August evening, when the air clung like a second skin and the cicadas sang a mournful chorus. I returned home early from a case, my briefcase heavy with papers, my heart lighter with the prospect of a rare evening with family. The house was quiet, the kind of stillness that precedes a storm. I climbed the stairs, drawn by a soft laugh. Terence's, but not for me. In our bedroom I found them, him and my sister-in-law, Lena, my brother's wife, tangled in sheets that should have held our promises. The sight was a blade, slicing through the fabric of my world. Their laughter, carefree and cruel, filled the room until my shadow crossed the threshold. Terrence's eyes met mine, and he laughed again, a sound sharp with arrogance. "What are you going to do? Divorce me?" he said, his voice a taunt, as if my pain were a jest. Lena's smirk mirrored his, a betrayal doubled by blood. I said nothing. Words felt too small for the wound. My heart, a drum of rage and sorrow, pounded as I turned away, descending the stairs with a calm that belied the storm within. In the kitchen, I packed a bag, clothes, Zora's favorite book, my law degree, each item a step towards severance. Their laughter stopped as the front door clicked shut behind me, the silence a mirror to my resolve. I drove to Mama's house, Zora asleep in the back seat, my tears falling like rain on a windshield. The road stretched before me, a metaphor for the unknown, but in my chest, a spark flickered, a fire that would not be extinguished. What did it mean to leave a life behind? Could I rebuild from the ashes of such betrayal, or would the weight of love and loss crush me? The Black Queen, not yet named, was stirring, her crown forged in the crucible of that moment. Her destiny a question only time could answer. The road from that night stretched into a wilderness of grief and resolve, each mile a testament to the unraveling of a life I'd thought eternal. As I drove through Birmingham's quiet streets, Zora's soft breaths in the back seat were my only anchor, her innocence a beacon in the storm raging within me. The Black Queen, though unnamed, stirred in the marrow of my bones, her silhouette forming in the shadows of betrayal. My heart, bruised by Terrence's laughter and Lena's complicity, pulsed with a silent fire avowed to rise from the ashes of a love that had turned to poison. Mama's house, a sanctuary of faded curtains and the scent of lavender, welcomed us in the pre-dawn hours, her arms enfolding me like the roots of an ancient oak. "You're home, child," she whispered, and in that embrace, I began to piece together the fragments of a self I'd nearly lost. The days that followed were a haze of survival. I moved through them mechanically, my lawyer's mind cataloging tasks, securing a new apartment, enrolling Zora in a nearby school, filing for a divorce, while my heart wrestled with the weight of betrayal. Terrence's taunt echoed, "What are you going to do, divorce me?" It was a challenge I met with silence, not out of weakness, but from a clarity that words would cheapen. I hired a lawyer, a Black woman named Claudia, whose eyes held the wisdom of battles fought. "You're claiming your life back," she said, her voice a steady drumbeat. The papers were drawn, my signature a quiet rebellion, severing ties to a man who'd traded our vows for fleeting pleasure. Lena's betrayal cut deeper, a wound of blood and trust. My brother's wife, once a confidant, had woven herself into my home only to unravel it. I saw her face in my mind, her smirk, her casual dismissal of my pain, and felt the sting of family turned foe. My brother, Jamal, called, his voice heavy with shame, claiming ignorance of her actions. I believed him, but the fracture remained. Family gatherings, once warm with laughter, now loomed as battlegrounds I avoided. Racism's shadow lingered too, for in Lena's betrayal, I saw the internalized poison, her lighter skin, her straightened hair, a currency she wielded to align with Terrence's ego. Leaving my darkness to bear the blame, Zora, at 7, was my compass through the fog. Her questions, "Why isn't Daddy coming?" pierced like arrows, and I answered with half-truths, shielding her from the ugliness. "We're starting a new adventure, baby," I'd say, tucking her in with stories of brave Black queens, their courage a mirror to the strength I was forging. Her laughter, her small hand in mine, reminded me why I fought to give her a world where betrayal didn't define her worth. Yet guilt gnawed. Had my choice to leave thrust her into a storm too vast for her young heart? Work became my refuge, the law firm a battlefield where I wielded intellect like a sword. My cases, often pro bono for Black families facing eviction or discrimination, were a rebellion against the systems that diminished us. Yet racism was a constant companion. Clients who hesitated, assuming a white lawyer would serve them better. Colleagues who praised my articulate arguments with a condescension that burnt. Class humiliation intertwined. My modest upbringing, my thrift store suits, marked me as an outsider in a world of tailored privilege. I countered with excellence, winning cases that forced the firm to see me. But each victory was a reminder of the cost nights away from Zora. Dreams deferred for survival. The emotional destruction was a quiet tide, eroding my edges. Nights found me staring at the ceiling, Terence's laughter a ghost in my mind, blending with memories of a love that once felt sacred. I sought therapy, finding solace in Dr. Simone, a black woman whose locks framed a face etched with empathy. Betrayal reshapes you, Amara, she said, but it doesn't define you. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the abyss. I began to journal, my pen carving poetry from pain. From the wreckage of trust, I build a throne, each chair a stone in its foundation. The act was cathartic, a reclaiming of my voice. I moved us to a small apartment, its walls bare but filled with possibility. I painted them with Zora, her giggles splashing color across my grief. Community became my soft church friends who brought casseroles, neighbors who shared stories of their own betrayals. One, Miss Evelyn, a widow with eyes like ancient rivers, told me of her own escape from a faithless husband. "You're stronger than you know," she said, her hand on mine. Her words echoed Mama's, stitching me back together. My ambitions grew, a fire kindled by necessity. I took on higher profile cases, representing community groups against corporate greed. One case, a fight to save a historic black neighborhood from developers, drew media attention. I stood before cameras, my voice steady. "This is our heritage, not their profit." The victory was sweet, preserving homes, but it drew enemies, developers who saw me as a threat. Their whispers laced with racism and class disdain. "Who does she think she is?" they'd sneer, as if my audacity to fight was a crime. Love, once a wound, began to heal. I dated tentatively a professor named Malik whose quiet strength reminded me of Daddy. Our evenings, spent discussing literature and justice, were a balm, but I guarded my heart, betrayal's lesson etched deep. "I'm not whole yet," I told him, and he nodded, his patience a gift I wasn't ready to fully accept. Travel offered escape. A trip to New Orleans where jazz spilled like wine stirred my soul. I walked the French Quarter, feeling the pulse of resilience, and funded a scholarship for black girls in Zora's name, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at community forums, my story resonating. Betrayal breaks, but it also builds. Yet challenges loomed. Terence, emboldened by Lena's whispers, fought the divorce, claiming I'd abandoned him. Court loomed, a new arena for pain. Racism and class shadowed me. Would the system see a black woman's truth, or his lies? The Black Queen, rising, faced a question: could I reclaim my dignity in a world bent on breaking it? The courtroom loomed like a crucible, its oak-paneled walls a silent jury to the unraveling of my past and the forging of my future. As I sat, my hands steady on the table, the Black Queen within me stirred, her silent fire a shield against the storm of Terence's accusations. His claim that I had abandoned our marriage, that I was unfit for Zora's custody, cut deeper than his betrayal, each word a blade wielded to strip me of my dignity. Yet I sat tall, my lawyer Claudia at my side, her presence a reminder that I was not alone in this fight. The world outside continued its indifferent hum, cars weaving through Birmingham's arteries, lives untouched by my private war, but within me, a revolution burned, fueled by the pain of love lost and the resolve to reclaim my destiny. The divorce proceedings were a theater of cruelty, each session peeling back layers of a life I'd thought sacred. Terence, polished in a suit bought with my absence, painted himself victim, his voice smooth with lies. He spoke of my ambition, my long hours at the firm, as if they were crimes against our vows, never mentioning the nights he spent with Lena, their laughter a mockery of my trust. The judge, an older white man whose eyes betrayed no warmth, listened impassively while whispers of racism lingered in the air. Would he see me, a black woman, as more than a stereotype? Claudia countered with evidence, text messages, witnesses, the undeniable truth of his infidelity. I remained silent, my gaze a quiet fire, letting facts speak where emotions might falter. Lena's shadow haunted the proceedings, though she never appeared. My brother Jamal, torn by her betrayal, sat in the gallery, his face a map of regret. Our bond, once unbreakable, was strained. I forgave his ignorance but could not erase the sting of his wife's complicity. Family betrayal was a wound that bled slowly, its pain a reminder of trust's fragility. I avoided his calls, focusing instead on Zora, whose questions grew sharper. "Why can Daddy live with us?" I knelt before her, my heart aching, and wove stories of strength. "We're building a new home, baby. One where love doesn't hurt." Her small nod, her trust in me was a lifeline, but guilt not had I failed to shield her from this chaos. Work was my anchor, the law a canvas for my rage and redemption. I took on cases that mirrored my pain: Black women facing eviction, families crushed by systemic inequity. One case, defending a community center from corporate takeover, became my crusade. I stood before city officials, my voice a blade. "This is our sanctuary, not your profit." The victory preserved a space for youth like Zora, but it drew enemies: developers whose wealth dwarfed my own, their disdain laced with class humiliation. "She's just a paralegal who got lucky," they'd whisper, as if my law degree, earned through sleepless nights, was a fluke. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, my cases piling up wins, forcing respect where none was given freely. Emotional destruction was a quiet tide, rising in moments of solitude. Nights found me staring at the apartment's bare walls, Terrence's laughter a ghost in my ears, blending with Lena's smirk. Dr. Simone's sessions were my refuge, her voice guiding me through the wreckage. "You're not their betrayal, Amara, you're your survival." I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From the ashes of trust, I rise, my scars a map to power. Meditation became ritual, my breath aligning with the pulse of ancestors who'd endured worse. Community bolstered me. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared tea and tales of her own rebirth, her wisdom a mirror. "You're stronger than their lies, child." Zora's resilience was my beacon. At 8, she thrived in school, her drawings now vibrant with queens and castles, her laughter a defiance of our fractured past. I enrolled her in dance, her twirls a poetry of freedom, but her questions lingered. "Will Daddy come to my recital?" I arranged supervised visits, watching from afar as Terrence played the doting father, his charm a mask I no longer believed. My heart ached, but I stood firm, protecting her from his volatility. My ambitions grew, a fire kindled by necessity. I launched a pro bono clinic at the firm, serving Black women entangled in legal battles: divorce, custody, discrimination. Each case was a thread in my tapestry of justice, a defiance of the systems that had tried to break me. Media noticed, a local paper dubbing me Birmingham's advocate, a title I wore with pride but wariness. Fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw and unfiltered. "She's too angry to lead," they'd write, as if my passion was a flaw. I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. "Anger is the spark of justice, kindled by those who've endured." Love, once a wound, began to stir. Malik, the professor, persisted, his quiet courtship a balm. Over dinners, we debated history and hope, his respect for my mind a contrast to Terrence's dismissal. Yet I held back, betrayal's shadow looming. "I'm still healing," I told him, and he nodded, his patience a bridge I crossed slowly. Travel offered solace. In Savannah, I walked cobblestone streets, the city's history whispering of resilience. I funded a scholarship for Black girls, naming it for Zora, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at rallies, my story resonating. Betrayal builds, if you let it. The divorce finalized, a bittersweet victory. I won custody, Terrence's claims crumbling under truth. But he vowed to fight, his eyes cold with spite. A new threat loomed: a lawsuit from Lena, claiming defamation, her audacity a fresh wound. The Black Queen, rising, faced a question. Could I forge power from pain, or would new betrayals bury me? The courtroom, once a crucible for my divorce, became a new battleground as Lena's lawsuit loomed, its shadow afresh wound in the tapestry of my rebirth. Her claimed defamation, spun from my public recounting of her betrayal, felt like a mockery of justice, a blade wielded by a woman who'd already cut me to the bone. Yet, as I sat in Claudia's office, poring over legal briefs, the Black Queen within me rose, her silent fire of furnace-forging resolve. I was Amara Tate, no longer just a betrayed wife but a warrior carving her destiny from the wreckage of love and loyalty. Birmingham pulsed outside, its steel heart indifferent to my struggle. But within me, a revolution burned, fueled by the pain of family betrayal and the audacity to reclaim my voice. Lena's lawsuit was a calculated strike, her legal team painting me as a vindictive liar seeking to ruin her reputation. In depositions, she sat poised, her lighter skin and straightened hair a silent currency, her tears a performance for the wide judge who seemed swayed by her fragility. Racism's undercurrent was palpable. My blackness, my unapologetic truth, was framed as aggression, my success as a lawyer a fluke. Claudia dismantled their case with precision, presenting evidence, texts, witnesses, the undeniable truth of that August night. I remained silent, my gaze a quiet fire, letting facts speak where emotions might falter. The case dragged, each hearing a reminder of the world's eagerness to diminish me, but I stood firm, my heart a drumbeat of defiance. The emotional toll was a tide, rising in the quiet of night. Memories of Lena's laughter, entwined with Terence's, haunted my dreams, blending with older wounds, classmates' taunts, colleagues' condescension. Dr. Simone's sessions were my sanctuary, her voice a beacon. You're not their lies, Amara, you're your truth. I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From betrayal's venom, I distill strength, each wound a jewel in my crown. Meditation under Birmingham's oaks, the scent of earth grounding me, became ritual. I lit candles, chanting prayers that wove me into ancestral resilience, their strength a shield against despair. Zora, now 9, was my compass. Her questions grew sharper. Why doesn't Lena hate us? And I answered with care, shielding her from the ugliness. Some people lose their way, baby, I'd say, tucking her in with stories of queens who rose from ashes. Her dense recitals, where she twirled with a grace that belied her years, were my joy. But guilt lingered. Had my battles cast shadows on her childhood? I enrolled her in art therapy, her drawings a canvas for healing, and we painted our apartment walls with murals of hope, stars, rivers, queens. Her laughter, her small hand in mine, reminded me why I fought, to give her a world where her blackness was a crown, not a curse. Work was my rebellion, the law firm a battlefield where I wielded justice like a sword. My pro bono clinic grew, serving Black women entangled in systems designed to break them: evictions, custody battles, workplace discrimination. One case, defending a mother named Tanisha against a predatory landlord, became my crusade. I stood before a judge, my voice a blade. This is her home, not their profit. The victory saved her family, but it drew enemies: real estate moguls whose wealth dwarfed my own, their disdain laced with class humiliation. She's just a lottery winner playing lawyer, they'd whisper, as if my degree, earned through sleepless nights, was a gift. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, my cases piling up wins, forcing respect where none was given freely. Community was my salve. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared stories of her own rebirth, her wisdom a mirror. You're stronger than their knives, child, church friends rallied, their prayers a chorus lifting me. I hosted dinners for activists, their fire mirroring mine. One night, a young woman named Keisha shared her escape from an abusive partner, her voice trembling but resolute. I saw myself in her, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." Her nod, tearful but strong, echoed my own journey from humiliation to empowerment. Malik, the professor, remained a quiet presence, his courtship a gentle tide. We traveled to Memphis, where Beale Street's blues stirred my soul. Over ribs, he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Almara. His respect softened my edges, but betrayal's shadow lingered. I held back, wary of love's risks. I'm still mending, I told him, and he nodded. His patience a bridge I crossed slowly. Travel broadened my vision. In Atlanta, I walked the paths of civil rights heroes, their courage a mirror. I funded a scholarship for black girls, naming it for Mama, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at rallies, my story resonating. Betrayal builds, if you let it. Media dubbed me Birmingham's voice, a title I wore with pride but caution, knowing fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw. She's too loud, too black. I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. My voice is the echo of ancestors, unbroken. The lawsuit's resolution came abruptly, a settlement, Lena's case collapsing under evidence. Victory was bittersweet. Her apology, delivered through lawyers, rang hollow. Terrence, emboldened by her defeat, escalated his fight for Zora, claiming I was unfit. His new allies, wealthy developers, funded his cause. Their motives clear: to silence my advocacy. The Black Queen, rising, faced a question: could I protect my daughter and my purpose? Or would new battles break me? The battle for Zora's custody loomed like a storm cloud over my horizon, its thunder a reminder of the fragility of the world I was rebuilding. Terrence's renewed fight, backed by the deep pockets of developers who saw my advocacy as a threat, was not just a personal vendetta but a calculated strike against the Black Queen rising within me. I stood in my apartment, Zora's laughter from her bedroom a melody against the chaos, and felt the weight of my choices. Each victory in the courtroom, each speech at a rally, had painted a target on my back. Yet the silent fire that had sparked in the wreckage of betrayal now burned as a beacon, illuminating a path through pain toward power. I was Almara Tate, forged in the crucible of love and loss, and I would not yield. The custody hearings were a theater of manipulation, Terrence's charm a polished weapon. He sat in court, his eyes soft with feigned remorse, spinning tales of a devoted father torn from his daughter by my ambition. His lockers, funded by corporate allies, painted me as neglectful, my long hours at the firm evidence of a mother unfit. Racism's shadow hovered my blackness, my unapologetic rise, framed as arrogance in a world that preferred me small. Claudia, my lawyer, countered with precision, records of my care, Zora's thriving grades, witnesses to my devotion. I sat silent, my gaze a quiet fire, letting truth speak where pain might falter. The judge, a stern woman with graying hair, seemed impartial, but I knew the system's bias. Would it see a black mother's love or Terrence's lies? Zora was my anchor, her resilience a mirror to my own. At 9, she sensed a storm, her questions piercing. Will I have to live with Daddy? I knelt before her, my heart aching, and wove stories of strength. You're my queen, baby, and we'll stay together. Her trust, her small hand in mine was my fuel, but guilt not had my fight for justice thrust her into a war not hers. I fortified her with love, art therapy, and dance, her twirls a defiance of our fractured past. Supervised visits with Terrence were tense. I watched from afar, his laughter with her a ghost of what we'd been, his charm a mask I no longer trusted. Work was my rebellion, the law firm a battlefield where I wielded justice like a sword. My pro bono clinic grew, a sanctuary for black women facing battles like mine: custody disputes, workplace discrimination, systemic erasure. One case, defending a teacher named Latoya against wrongful termination, became my crusade. I stood before a labor board, my voice a blade. Her excellence is not your threat, but your loss. The victory restored her job, but it drew enemies, corporate interests whose wealth dwarfed my own, their disdain laced with class humiliation. She's just a loud black lawyer, they'd whisper, as if my voice, honed through pain, was a flaw. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, my cases piling up wins, forcing respect where none was given freely. Emotional destruction was a quiet tide, rising in solitude. Dreams of Terence's betrayal, Lena's smirk, haunted me, blending with older wounds, classmates' taunts, colleagues' condescension. Dr. Simone's sessions were my refuge, her voice a beacon. You're not their shadows, Amara, you're your light. I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From betrayal's thorns, I weave a crown, each scar a star, meditation under Birmingham's stars. The scent of pine grounding me became ritual. I burned sage, chanting prayers that wove me into ancestral strength, their resilience a shield against despair. Community was my salve. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared tea and tales of her own rebirth, her wisdom a mirror. You're stronger than their lies, child, church friends rallied, their prayers a chorus lifting me. I hosted dinners for activists, their fire mirroring mine. One night, a young man named Devon shared his fight against police brutality, his voice raw but resolute. I saw my brother in him, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." His nod, tearful but strong, echoed my own journey from humiliation to empowerment. Malik, the professor, remained a steady presence, his courtship a gentle tide. We traveled to Charleston, where history whispered of resistance, its cobblestone streets stirring my soul. Over shrimp and grits, he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Amara. His respect softened my edges, but betrayal's shadow lingered. I held back, wary of love's risks. I'm still healing, I told him, and he nodded. His patience a bridge I crossed slowly. Travel broadened my vision. In Montgomery, I walked the paths of Rosa Parks, her courage a mirror. I funded a community center there, naming it for Zora, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at rallies, my story resonating. Betrayal builds, if you let it. Media dubbed me Birmingham's beacon, a title I wore with pride but caution, knowing fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw. She's too angry, too black. I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. My anger is the spark of justice. Kindled by survival, the custody battle intensified. Terence's allies spreading lies in the press. Unfit mother seeks revenge, the narrative stung. Racism and classism intertwined, framing my fight as vindictive. I countered with transparency, hosting community forums, sharing my truth. I fight for my daughter, for our future. Supporters rallied, but doubt crept in. Could I protect Zora and my purpose? A new threat loomed. Developers, stung by my advocacy, lobbied to discredit me, their wealth fueling a smear campaign. The Black Queen, rising, faced a question: could I shield my daughter and my dreams, or would their power crush me? The storm of the custody battle raged, its winds laced with the venom of Terence's lies and the weight of a system that seemed poised to judge me not as Amara Tate, but as a black woman daring to demand justice. The developers' smear campaign, a calculated assault fueled by my advocacy against their greed, cast shadows over my name, their headlines branding me as unstable, unfit, a threat to Birmingham's order. Yet within me, the Black Queen stood unyielding, her silent fire a furnace that burned away doubt, forging resolve from the crucible of betrayal. I was no longer just a mother fighting for her daughter, but a warrior carving a legacy from the wreckage of love and loss. My heart a drumbeat echoing the strength of ancestors who'd endured far worse. The courtroom was a battlefield, each hearing a clash of truths and lies. Terence sat across from me, his face a mask of contrition, his lawyers spinning tales of a devoted father wronged by my ambition. They painted my long hours, my activism, as neglect, their words dripping with racism's subtle poison, my blackness framed as defiance, my success as a lawyer a fluke. Claudia, my rock, dismantled their narrative with evidence. Zora's thriving school records, my meticulous care, witnesses to Terrence's absence long before that August night. I sat silent, my gaze a quiet fire, letting facts speak where pain might falter. The judge, a woman whose neutrality masked a flicker of empathy, listened intently, but I knew the system's bias. Would it see a black mother's love or bend to the wealth behind Terrence's cause? Zora, now 10, was my compass through the chaos. Her eyes, bright with questions, pierced my heart. Will I have to leave you, Mommy? I held her close, weaving stories of queens who conquered. We're building our kingdom, baby, and no one can take that. Her resilience, her grades soaring, her dense performances radiant was a mirror to my own, but guilt gnawed. Had my fight exposed her to a world too harsh? I fortified her with love, therapy, and rituals. Saturday mornings painting murals, her laughter splashing color across my grief. Supervised visits with Terrence were tense. I watched from afar, his charm with her a ghost of what we'd been, his promises hollow. I shielded her, ensuring his volatility didn't taint her light. Work was my rebellion, the law firm a battlefield where I wielded justice like a sword. My pro bono clinic grew, a sanctuary for black women facing battles like mine: custody wars, evictions, systemic erasure. One case, defending a nurse named Monique against workplace racism, became my crusade. I stood before a tribunal, my voice a blade. Her competence is not your prejudices to judge. The victory restored her job, but it drew enemies: corporate interests whose wealth dwarfed my own, their disdain laced with class humiliation. She's just a loudmouth lawyer, they'd whisper, as if my voice, honed through pain, was a flaw. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, my cases piling up wins, forcing respect where none was given freely. Emotional destruction was a quiet tide, rising in solitude. Dreams of Terrence's laughter, Lena's smirk, haunted me, blending with older wounds: classmates' taunts, colleagues' condescension. Dr. Simone's sessions were my refuge, her voice a beacon. You're not their betrayal, Amara, you're your power. I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From pain's crucible, I forge a throne, each scar a star. Meditation under Birmingham's pines, the scent of earth grounding me, became ritual. I burned incense, chanting prayers that wove me into ancestral strength, their resilience a shield against despair. Community was my salve. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared tea and tales of her own rebirth, her wisdom a mirror. You're stronger than their lies, child. Church friends rallied, their prayers a chorus lifting me. I hosted dinners for activists, their fire mirroring mine. One night, a young woman named Dahlia shared her escape from domestic violence, her voice raw but resolute. I saw myself in her, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." Her nod, tearful but strong, echoed my own journey from humiliation to empowerment. Malik, the professor, remained a steady presence, his courtship a gentle tide. We traveled to New Orleans, where jazz spilled like wine, stirring my soul. Over beignets, he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Amara. His respect softened my edges, but betrayal's shadow lingered. I held back, wary of love's risks. I'm still mending, I told him, and he nodded. His patience a bridge I crossed slowly. Travel broadened my vision. In Selma, I walked the Edmund Pettus Bridge, its history whispering of sacrifice. I funded a youth program there, naming it for Zora, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at rallies, my story resonating. Betrayal builds, if you let it. Media dubbed me Birmingham's Fire, a title I wore with pride but caution, knowing fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw. She's too angry, too black. I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. My anger is the flame of justice, kindled by survival. The custody battle reached a climax, the judge's ruling imminent. Terrence's allies escalated their smear, leaking Dr. D mails implying I'd neglected Zora. The press pounced, headlines reviving old wounds, unfit mother fights dirty, racism and classism intertwined, framing my fight as vindictive. I countered with transparency, holding community forums. I fight for my daughter, for our truth. Supporters rallied, but doubt crept in. Could I protect Zora and my purpose? A new threat loomed. Developers, stung by my advocacy, pushed a city ordinance to undermine my clinic, their wealth a weapon. The Black Queen, rising, faced a question: could I shield my daughter and my mission, or would their power crush me? The gavel's echo in the courtroom signaled a turning point, but not an end, as the judge's ruling granted me full custody of Zora. Her words a quiet vindication. Miss Tate's dedication to her daughter is undeniable. Terrence's face, stripped of its practiced charm, betrayed a flicker of defeat, but his eyes held a promise of retribution, a shadow that trailed me as I left the courthouse. The Black Queen within me stood tall, her silent fire now a blazing beacon, yet the victory was bittersweet, laced with the weight of battle still unfolding. The developer's ordinance, a calculated strike to cripple my pro bono clinic, loomed like a storm cloud, their wealth and influence a reminder that my rise threatened their dominion. Birmingham pulsed around me, its steel heart indifferent, but within me, a revolution burned, fueled by the pain of betrayal and the resolve to carve a legacy from the wreckage of love and loss. The custody win was a shield for Zora, but not a fortress. At 10, she sensed the undercurrents, her questions sharper. Will Daddy try again, Mommy? I held her close, my heart aching, weaving stories of queens unconquered. We're building our kingdom, baby, and it's ours to keep. Her resilience, her dense performances radiant. Her grade soaring was a mirror to my own, but guilt not. Had my fight exposed her to a world too harsh? I fortified her with love, therapy, and rituals. Saturday mornings baking cornbread, her laughter a melody against my fears. I limited Terrence's visits, his charm now a faint echo, his presence a risk I monitored with a mother's vigilance. Work was my rebellion, the law firm a battlefield where I wielded justice like a sword. The developer's ordinance, disguised as budget reform, aimed to slash funding for community clinics like mine, threatening the Black women I served. I rallied allies, activists, council members, families saved by my work, and stood before the city council, my voice a blade. This is not reform. It's erasure of those who need us most. The fight was grueling, their wealth dwarfing my resources, their disdain laced with class humiliation. She's just a loud lawyer, they'd whisper, as if my voice, honed through pain, was a flaw. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, mobilizing petitions, media campaigns, my clinic's impact undeniable. The ordinance stalled, a victory carved from persistence, but enemies grew bolder, their whispers hinting at new plots. Emotional destruction was a quiet tide, rising in solitude. Dreams of Terrence's betrayal, Lena's smirk, haunted me, blending with newer wounds. Developers' sneers, trolls' slurs. Dr. Simone's sessions were my refuge, her voice a beacon. You're not their lies, Amara, you're your light. I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From betrayal's ashes, I forge a crown, each scar a star. Meditation under Birmingham's oaks, the scent of earth grounding me, became ritual. I burned sage, chanting prayers that wove me into ancestral strength, their resilience a shield against despair. Community was my salve. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared tea and tales of her own rebirth, her wisdom a mirror. You're stronger than their knives, child. Church friends rallied, their prayers a chorus lifting me. I hosted dinners for activists, their fire mirroring mine. One night, a young man named Jamal, named for my brother, a painful irony, shared his fight against wrongful incarceration, his voice raw but resolute. I saw my past in him, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." His nod, tearful but strong, echoed my own journey from humiliation to empowerment. Malik, the professor, remained a steady presence, his courtship a gentle tide. We traveled to Savannah, where history whispered of resistance, its marshes stirring my soul. Over crab cakes, he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Amara. His respect softened my edges, and I began to yield, betrayal's shadow fading. I'm ready to try, I told him, and his smile, warm as dawn, was a bridge to love. We planned a future, not as savior and saved, but as equals building together. Travel broadened my vision. In Jackson, I walked the paths of Medgar Evers, his courage a mirror. I funded a youth center there, naming it for Zora, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at rallies, my story resonating. Betrayal builds, if you let it. Media dubbed me Birmingham's Hope, a title I wore with pride but caution, knowing fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw. She's too angry, too black, I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. My anger is the flame of justice, kindled by survival. The developer's next move was subtle, a smear campaign implying financial misconduct at my clinic. The press pounced, headlines reviving old wounds, lawyers' clinic under scrutiny, racism and classism intertwined, framing my work as suspect. I countered with transparency, opening my books, holding forums. Our work is our truth. Supporters rallied, but doubt crept in. Could I protect my mission and my daughter? A new opportunity emerged. A coalition of Black women leaders invited me to run for city council to amplify my fight. The prospect stirred my heart, but fear lingered. Would power expose Zora to greater storms? The Black Queen, rising, faced a question: could I wield power without losing my soul, or would new battles break me? The council chambers, awash in the golden light of a Birmingham dawn, became my throne room as I stood to take the oath as city councilwoman, the first Black woman to hold this seat in our ward. The Black Queen, forged in the crucible of betrayal and tempered by the fires of resilience, now bore a crown not of gold but of purpose, each facet a testament to the battles I'd won. My journey from the wreckage of Terrence's laughter and Lena's treachery to this moment of triumph was a tapestry woven with pain, love, and an unyielding will to rise. The crowd, a mosaic of faces from the neighborhoods I'd fought for, roared with pride, their voices a chorus of ancestors urging me forward. Yet, as I raised my hand, swearing to serve, I felt the weight of new battles looming, their shadows a reminder that power, like love, was a fragile gift, easily targeted by those who feared its light. Governance was a battlefield, its terrain more treacherous than any courtroom. My first act was a bold proposal. A community reinvestment plan to fund affordable housing, youth programs, and healthcare in Black and low-income neighborhoods. Resistance was swift. Council members, tethered to corporate interests, cloaked their opposition in budget concerns, but their eyes betrayed the truth. My presence, my audacity, threatened their dominion. Racism's undercurrent was palpable. My Blackness, my unapologetic voice, was framed as divisive, my success as a lawyer a fluke. This plan prioritizes certain communities, one colleague sneered, his words a dog whistle. I stood, my voice a blade of fire. Equity prioritizes justice, not division. Birmingham thrives when all its people rise. The measure passed narrowly, a victory carved from persistence, but it drew enemies, developers whose wealth dwarfed my own, their disdain laced with class humiliation. Zora, now 11, was my compass, her resilience a mirror to my own. Her questions, will you change the city, mommy, ignited my purpose, but guilt lingered. Had my rise exposed her to a world too harsh? Her dance performances, now gracing larger stages, were a poetry of defiance, her grades a testament to her strength. I fortified her with love, therapy, and rituals. Sunday mornings baking cornbread, her laughter a melody against my fears. Terrence's visits, now rare, were supervised, his charm, once a lure, now a faint echo I guarded against. I watched her thrive, her drawings of queens and stars adorning our apartment, and vowed to build a world where her blackness was a crown, not a burden. Work was my rebellion. My pro bono clinic a sanctuary for black women facing battles like mine: evictions, custody wars, systemic erasure. One case, defending a family against a predatory developer, became my crusade. I stood before a judge, my voice a blade. Their home is not your profit. The victory preserved their legacy, but it drew enemies: corporate titans whose wealth fueled smear campaigns. She's just a loudmouth lawyer, they'd whisper, as if my voice, honed through pain, was a flaw. Racism intertwined, their glances marking my skin as a barrier to legitimacy. I countered with excellence, my clinic's impact undeniable, forcing respect where none was given freely. Malik, now my fiancé, was my haven. Our engagement, sealed under Birmingham's oaks, was a promise of love reborn, rooted in mutual respect. We traveled to Havana, where salsa rhythms stirred my soul, and he spoke of legacy. You're building something eternal, Amara. His support, his legal mind, sharpened my counsel work, our partnership a dance of equals. Love, once a wound, was now my strength, a bond unmarred by betrayal's shadow. We planned a wedding, steeped in African and Southern traditions, a celebration of resilience. Emotional destruction, though quieter, surfaced in solitude. Dreams of Terence's laughter, Lena's smirk, haunted me, blending with newer wounds. Counsel sneers, trolls slurs. Dr. Simone's sessions anchored me. You're not their lies, Amara, you're your light. I leaned into her words, journaling fiercely. From betrayal's ashes, I carve a throne. Each scar a constellation, meditation under full moons. The scent of sage grounding me became ritual. I chanted prayers, weaving myself into ancestral strength. Their resilience a shield against despair. Community was my lifeblood. Miss Evelyn, my neighbor, shared tea and tales of her own rebirth. Her wisdom a mirror. You're stronger than their knives, child. Church friends rallied, their prayers a chorus lifting me. I hosted dinners for activists, their fire mirroring mine. One night, a young woman named Maya, once homeless, shared her college acceptance, her voice raw but resolute. I saw myself in her, offering resources, whispering, "You are enough." Her nod, tearful but strong, echoed my journey from humiliation to empowerment. Travel broadened my vision. In Accra, I walked the shores of Cape Coast, tears falling for ancestors stolen, their strength now mine. I funded a school there named for Zora, a seed of legacy. Back home, I spoke at global forums, my story a beacon. From pain, power, from loss, sovereignty. Media dubbed me Birmingham's queen, a title I wore with pride but caution, knowing fame drew scrutiny. Online trolls, emboldened by anonymity, hurled slurs, their racism raw. She's too angry, too black. I countered with op-eds, my words poetic. My anger is the flame of justice, kindled by survival. Challenges persisted. A developer-funded lawsuit aimed to block my reinvestment plan, their wealth a weapon. I fought back, my team relentless, public support a tide. Victory came, but exhaustion whispered, was I enough? Mama, frail but fierce, answered, you're their legacy. Child, Malik echoed, your history. Zora, thriving, stood tall. As my term unfolded, I'd hire office a mayoral run to carry Birmingham's lessons further. The Black Queen, forged in fire, stood eternal, her crown a constellation of triumphs. My legacy, carved into time, was not titles or wealth, but lives lifted, systems reshaped, love endured. From a silent exit to a throne's weight, I had risen, a star undimmed, a queen unbroken, my fire a light for generations to come. Thank you for embarking on this journey with me. If you wish for additional stories or explorations, I'm here to weave them.